Welcome to the 2025 Annual iPad Awards, and today we will be crowning the best iPad of the year. In the ring, the reigning heavyweight champion, the iPad Pro M4, and taking it on, the OnePlus iPad 3. Round 1, wireless file transfer. The iPad nails it with AirDrop. But what's this? The OnePlus iPad 3 lands a clean punch with O+ Connect across macOS, iPadOS, and iOS, making it a tie. Round 2, cross-device file management. The iPad fumbles with its walled garden file manager, and who's got time to wait for iPadOS 26? But the OnePlus iPad 3 connects to a Mac directly. 2-1, OnePlus is in the lead. Round 3, dual screen working. The third round goes to the iPad with sidecar support for dual screen working, extended display support, plus keyboard and mouse sharing. We're all tied going into the final round. Round 4, remote control. And which tablet can remotely access my Mac from wherever I am? It's the OnePlus iPad 3, putting it back in the lead. And with that, the winner of the iPad Awards 2025 is the OnePlus iPad 3. Congratulations. Sorry, what? It's just the OnePlus Pad 3, not the OnePlus iPad. But that doesn't make any sense. It's more of an iPad than an iPad. You're watching Tech Edit. My name is Basil, and this is the OnePlus Pad 3, and it is a tablet with a major identity crisis. Powerful, versatile, surprisingly Mac-friendly, and it costs a fraction of the price of the iPad Pro or Galaxy S10 Ultra. And as I said, it out-iPads the iPad in some ways. But the real question is it any good? I'll dive into all the details in a moment. I've been using it for over a month now. But before I do, if you're not already subscribed to Tech Edit, please do. It's how you stay on top of everything that I do. And ding that bell when you subscribe for notifications. Right, let's get into the OnePlus Pad 3. Starting with price and specs, it's available for £529 in the UK or $699. That gets you the base model, which I'm reviewing, with 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. If you want the upgraded model, 16 gigabytes RAM, 512 gigabytes of storage, and it's slightly faster RAM, LPDDR5T, you're looking at £599. You can also pick up some accessories separately. The smart keyboard is £169, $199, and the OnePlus Stylo to £99 or $99. Even fully kitted out, the OnePlus Pad 3 costs significantly less than the iPad Pro. Onto the design and display, and this is a big tablet. 13.2 inches of screen. So if you're looking for a one-handed kind of TikTok reading style tablet, you can do it, but it's going to be significantly more cumbersome than smaller 10-inch tablets. But if you love going into split screen working, you like gaming on a tablet, want big screen video watching, then it is pretty perfect for that. Despite its size, it's impressively thin at just 5.97 millimeters, which is thinner than its predecessor, the OnePlus Pad 2. It's elegant as a result, but it still feels well built with an aluminium unibody, so feels rigid, but it's comfortable to hold with the curved corners so it doesn't dig into your palm when you're holding it with one hand or two. Clearly made to be used in landscape based on the position of the selfie camera, which is centered when you're holding it sideways. You also have the buttons oriented for comfortable access that way. So the power button's on the left side, top left you've got the volume buttons, right hand side USB-C port, up at the top you've got a magnetic point that the pen can attach and charge to, and it's worth noting there is no micro SD card slot, no SIM card slot options here. Around the back you've got some pogo pins where the keyboard connects to, and it magnetically takes a kind of kickstand cover, which is part of the keyboard cover as well. There's also the single camera around the back. I mentioned no micro SD card slot, but there's also no fingerprint scanner on here, which I kind of would expect for a tablet of this positioning. Nevertheless, it does pack stacks of value, and you can get into your tablet with Face Unlock, even if it isn't quite as secure. Moving on to the accessories, and the make or break accessory for me when I get a tablet is the keyboard folio, and Apple and now Xiaomi that have copied Apple's kind of floating design with the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro. Just nail it. They're at the top of the game when it comes to keyboards because I can use the tablet on my lap like a laptop. Folios with kickstands are fine and they're so good for movie watching, and that's what this has. It's a two-part keyboard, but they're just much less secure. And with a tablet that's this big, if it falls hard. Now the magnet's strong with the kickstand, but it isn't quite as strong with the keyboard, so they can detach when on a lap. However, if you're using the tablet on a desk, then it's very comfortable. But because it's a big tablet, it also makes the keyboard folio a bit cumbersome for small plain tray tables, for example. So the tablet is like a great design. I can't really complain about anything. It's a bit designed by numbers, so there's nothing outstanding about it, but it's solid. But I do have to say the keyboard folio is second rate by comparison to the floating keyboards, which are significantly more expensive as well. Bear that in mind. But definitely this is a little bit less usable for lap workers. Still, if you're thinking about this for a workhorse second and an entertainment tablet first, then that shouldn't even be a consideration, as I'll come on to. You can also pick up a pen for the OnePlus Pad 3, and that's the Stylo 2. OnePlus didn't launch a new one, so if you've got an old Stylo 2 from a past tablet, it will work nicely on this. OnePlus's handwriting recognition is so good, and if you're using the native Notes app, you can get some haptic feedback mimicking pen on paper texture when you're writing on it. Now, it's a bit unnecessary, indulgent, but it doesn't detract from the experience, and for the most part the pen's very accurate too, so you do get a good pen experience. I'd say the kickstand is priceless, so if you get the keyboard folio, I've ended up using the kickstand more than I have the keyboard, but the two parts work nicely with the keyboard protecting the front, and it isn't as cumbersome or heavy as one of those Apple floating keyboards I was talking about. Now let's get into that display, and it's a 13.2-inch LCD tablet with 3K resolution. That means 3392 by 2400 pixels. It's a 7:5 aspect ratio, 315 pixels per inch at 12-bit color, 900 nit peak brightness, and a 144 Hz refresh rate that's adaptive, and you've got one of the best LCDs at this price point. Yes, it's an LCD. No, it isn't an OLED, and that is unfortunate, but this thing is still packed with value. For anyone who isn't aware, LCDs, which are used on this tablet, emit light when they show blacks, and as a result, you don't have such deep cinematic inky blacks. It reduces the contrast ratio. That means when you're watching a show, a movie of 16:9, 21:9, you'll get black borders up top and bottom, and you can tell that they're there, especially if you're watching in a dimly lit room or on a plane at night. But colors are still punchy. Motion clarity is excellent. Visibility is good even when outdoors. Netflix HDR wasn't supported in my time testing the tablet. I don't know if it will be down the line, but irrespective, if you have your own HDR content, it looks fantastic, and YouTube HDR content also looks great. A few other points. Viewing angles are also fantastic. OnePlus loads up plenty of display options, so whether you need to dial back that blue light or change up the color profile, jump into the settings and you can. I also love that OnePlus gives you quick access to auto brightness in the pull down quick toggles. Not every brand does that, and it's very convenient, but I will say the 144 Hz refresh rate, don't be taken in by that over a 120 Hz alternative panel. In my tests, I found that the tablet peaked at 120 Hz across pretty much everything I did. That may have been a limitation of my test, but what I found was it was either running at 60 Hz, 50 Hz, or 120 Hz. Still better than an iPad, but 144 Hz was never going to kick in for popular games, movies, etc. Okay, I'm going to test out the speakers now. I've got the Rode NT microphone that's equidistant from both these tablets, OnePlus Pad 3, iPad M4, it's iPad Pro. Bear in mind this tablet is much more expensive, both set to max volume. I'm going to fly through different types of music quickly. If you don't want to hear all this, you can skip through to the next section in the chapters.
2 a.m. in the car playing our favorite song. Turn it up. 2 a.m. in the car playing our favorite song. Turn it up.
So that's pretty conclusive. The OnePlus Pad 3 gets a little bit louder. It's going to fill a room a bit more, but it doesn't have quite as clean sound separation as the iPad Pro. Both are going to be perfectly good for watching and listening on though. So far so good across design and screen, but what about the cameras? Now cameras are always secondary on tablets, I know that, but you do get a decent setup, 13 megapixels around the back, 8 megapixels at the front. 13 megapixel camera can record up to 4K resolution, 30 frames per second. The selfie camera up to 1080p. Now it's worth noting if you want to do document scans and stuff, autofocus is good for that. And it works across relatively low lighting conditions if you have a very steady hand, but dynamic range is weak. This is still a tablet camera, and the front camera is perfectly good for a few Zoom calls, Google Meets. I tried it out. Microphones picked my voice up well. The person on the other side could hear me, so all good on those fronts. Here's a quick sample of what the front and the rear camera sounds and looks like. This is a selfie camera video sample shot on the front camera at 8 megapixels of the OnePlus Pad 3 at 1080p resolution. And this is a rear camera sample shot on the OnePlus Pad 3 at 4K 30 frames per second. And as you can see, it's a very well lit environment. As soon as the lights go down, do expect noise to creep in for video and photos as well, but not quite so quickly. One use case for the OnePlus Pad 3 camera that I was not expecting, with a folio stand propping it up, I pointed it at my front door to see how some insects were getting into my flat, and with a fantastic battery life, I dropped the resolution down to 720p. It recorded for 3 hours and longer, didn't dent the battery life too much, and it helped me sort out my problems. So tablet cameras can be handy in ways smartphone cameras might not, owing to battery life or just the ergonomics. Now, performance is really where the OnePlus Pad 3 shines. It used to be the case that iPads had all the optimized games, all the optimized apps, and all the power when it came to tablets. Android tablets just could not cut it. But I actually prefer using my OnePlus Pad 3 to my iPad Pro M4. Starting with the specs, it runs the Snapdragon 8 Elite, which is a great start. 12 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM or 16 gigabytes of slightly faster LPDDR5T RAM. All my benchmarks were with the 12 gig model, but in real world tests, it was incredibly solid, not slowing down at any point, no crashes or anything like that. Geekbench hit a multi-core score of 9,024, which is up there with top-tier smartphones, as is the Antutu score of over 2,755,000. I really enjoyed gaming on this tablet. Now that Genshin Impact has controller support for Android and Wuthering Waves has for a while, you can play those games and many others with the big screen without having to deal with big touch screen controls. Honkai Star Rail, unfortunately, doesn't have controller support just yet, but I played it using PS Remote Play and it looked beautiful. Now, a top tip, if you have the official PS Remote Play app, it won't output at full resolution, but if you download PX Play through the Google Play Store, you do have to pay a little bit for it, but it is worth it. If you're like me, then you can play at high resolution, which looks much better on this tablet. Thanks to the vapor chamber with graphene composite, heat management is really kept in check, and it's a tablet, so obviously it's going to do a better job of managing heat than a smaller smartphone. And like I said, you're not holding your tablet, you're using a controller probably, or interacting with the touchscreen occasionally, and as a result, nothing is going to get too hot for your hands. Throttling was also kept in check across CPU throttling tests and 3D Mark Solar Bay stress tests. So even if you're playing the most intensive games on this thing, or if you like emulators, it's going to be as good as an Android tablet gets. The 12,140 milliamp battery on here is massive, so it's going to be great for charging up a second device. But if you just want great screen on-time performance, it's going to be solid there. 60 minutes of Crunchyroll, over 60% brightness, that's video streaming by the way, dropped it by 10%. So if you're in a bright environment, you'll be able to stream content for around 10 hours, which is pretty great. Drop the brightness and you can extend that significantly. So whether you need a tablet for a full day of work or watching or even gaming, if you're not playing anything too intensive, the OnePlus Pad 3 should be good for you. As far as charging goes, it doesn't ship with a power brick. However, it does charge up to 80 watts, and with a compatible charger, you can get a full charge in as little as 92 minutes, according to OnePlus, 18% power in just 10 minutes. Now, I had a 65-watt OnePlus charger, which was the only one I had to hand, so I tested it with that, and the results were still respectable. In 60 minutes, I hit 50%. In 91 minutes, I hit 90%, and I got a full charge in under 2 hours. Saving the best for last, and oxygenOS really is where the OnePlus Pad 3 pulls ahead of the pack. Multitasking is slick and smart. Open Canvas, which was first introduced on the OnePlus Open and Oppo Find N3, is back, and it is better than ever. So it can run with 3 apps, 2 off-screen or 1 off-screen, and the on-screen apps can either take up the whole display or half of the display. It sounds complicated, but it's really intuitive when you're actually using it. There's also a predictive element to help you get the most out of multitasking. When you switch between an app multiple times, it will prompt you to have them in split screen view, which is very, very handy. The taskbar at the bottom of the screen is also handy with quick access to recent files, and there's also a swipe in sidebar just like with OnePlus and Oppo phones, so it's simple to put the apps you use most frequently within easy reach. If you made it through the opening, you'll know all about the OnePlus Pad 3's Apple connectivity. Install O+ Connect on your iOS, iPadOS, and macOS devices, and the OnePlus Pad 3 becomes a great companion. For iPhones and iPads, it's just wireless file transfer, as introduced on the Oppo Find X8 Pro. And for Mac users, the Mac app lets you manage your tablet's files, photos, and wirelessly drag and drop to and from your Mac and OnePlus Pad 3 on your Mac. You can also send stuff straight to your Mac. Finally, the remote desktop feature supports full access to your computer so long as it's plugged in and connected to the internet. If you're getting deja vu, the feature was introduced on the Oppo Find N5, but it is much more fit for purpose on the OnePlus Pad 3 with this tab's much bigger display. In the latest update, OnePlus has also added Windows integration to this as well. So it doesn't even matter if you're not a Mac user, whatever computer you have, the OnePlus Pad 3 should play very nicely with it. As a result, I find oxygenOS on the OnePlus Pad 3 much more useful than Android interfaces across Samsung, Xiaomi, and other tablets, and also across my iPad 2, which has everything to do with why I said earlier I would pick this tablet over my iPad Pro. And so, summarizing this whole review, is the OnePlus Pad 3 worth it? The answer is quite clearly yes. And this is coming from not just someone who really likes OLED screens. I really don't like LCD screens because I really like watching stuff with letterboxing that doesn't have that grey light being pushed into my face. I'm quite fussy like that. But everything that this tablet does compensates for that very nicely, and also at the price. It is absolutely jam-packed with value. The alternatives are obviously the iPad Pro if you want that floating keyboard and an OLED display, or the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Ultra S10 Plus if you want an Android tablet, though the keyboard's similarly not great in terms of the form factor, and Samsung's tablets are just very expensive by comparison. Alternatively, the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro has that floating keyboard, also an LCD display, though the user interface isn't quite so great and the performance can't stack up to the OnePlus Pad 3. But if you want size, smarts, and power, this tablet is in a league of its own. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments section what you think of the OnePlus Pad 3. If I've got anything wrong, you don't agree with something I've said, let me know there too. Also, like I said at the beginning, if you're not already subscribed to Tech Edit, please do. It's how you stay on top of everything that I do, ding that bell to get notified when a new video drops. Thanks for watching.